New series of The Bottom Line with me, Evan Davis, starting tomorrow evening at 8:30, then available on the BBC Radio 4 website. BBC News at 7 o'clock. The United States has complained to Russia about being given just 1 hour's notice ahead of the Russian airstrikes on targets in Syria. It's not yet clear if the areas attacked were under the control of Islamic State, as the Russians claim, or whether they hit other opponents of Syria's President Assad. The US has also carried out airstrikes today, and the American Secretary of State, John Kerry, says they'll be talking to the Russians to clarify their actions.
We must not and will not be confused in our fight against ISIL with support for Assad. Moreover, we have also made clear that we would have grave concerns should Russia strike areas where ISIL and Al-Qaeda affiliated targets are not up.
Work to upgrade 2 rail routes in northern England and the Midlands, halted by the government a few months ago, is to be restarted. At the time, the government was accused of breaking election pledges after it paused the £38 billion project to electrify the Transpennine Line and Midland Main Line. David Cameron has rejected calls for slavery reparations during his first official visit to Jamaica. The Prime Minister faced calls to apologise from campaigners. He said he recognised that these wounds run very deep, but that helping development in the Caribbean was a better approach. More than 1 million UK drivers will be asked to take their diesel cars back to their suppliers after the Volkswagen emissions scandal. The company says the vehicles, which include Seats, Skodas and Audis, need modifications, but there are no safety risks. The Football Association says it will continue to support Michel Platini's bid to become president of the World Football governing body FIFA, despite him being linked to a corruption inquiry. Investigators looking at payments made to the French UEFA president by Sepp Blatter have described him as in between a witness and an accused person. BBC News.
The Labour conference in Brighton draws to a close today, and here on Radio 4 in an hour we have live debate as Gavin Esler and a panel of experts consider the foreign policies of the new Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, and Britain's place in the world, here on Radio 4 at 8 o'clock.
In a new series of The Life Scientific, Dame Carol Black discusses her work as an expert advisor to government.
We tried to make the sick note a fit note to reflect what you could do, not what you couldn't do.
And the challenges involved in dealing with controversial issues.
You know, you may be there when your mental health and state is quite good, but that may not be the same the next morning. So how do you ensure that the fluctuations that people have in their illnesses are well accounted for?
The Life Scientific returns next Tuesday morning at 9 and then available on the BBC Radio 4 website.
Now, Linda's made a disturbing discovery in the Arches.
Gangs who come in from the outside and go after anything that
true, I'm afraid.
And some of them are real villains, mixed up in all sorts of crime. They'll be well armed too.
Oh, my goodness.
Definitely not the kind of guys who want to tackle it.
No, I hope Will doesn't take any risks. Armed gangs? Shouldn't we tell the police?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll report it when I get home.
I doubt they'll be able to do much about it. Well, so much for a peaceful afternoon stroll.
Well, thanks for calling me out, Linda. I'll get someone to come out and bury it.
That's all right. If you don't mind, I'll leave all that to you, Brian.
Yes, all right. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Linda, she won't dare put her head out of doors after that.
Well, I wasn't kidding about the poachers.
I know.
Right, well, I'm off to see how Adam's doing with the maze.
Oh, Brian.
Did you have a nice lunch with the... whoever it was?
Carol. Yes. We had a lovely time.
Oh,
Oh, and Kate called. She's on her way home.
really? You mean she's finally had enough of her yurts and yoga experience?
Getting a lift back with a friend, so she'll be home for her birthday. Yeah.
Oh, hi, you're back.
Thought you might like a coffee.
Oh, no, thanks, that's really kind.
I know you're busy,
I've got to decide about these geese.
Oh,
Rex Fairbrother, he wants me to buy some for Christmas.
yes.
Mightn't be such a bad idea. He seems like a nice guy.
Whatever you think best, love.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mum. I know you've got other things to worry about.
I called in at Brookfield on my way back.
Oh?
Not for long. Just to give my condolences to Ruth.
How was she?
Not good. She looked very pale and washed out, poor thing. I did feel sorry for her. But she seemed pleased I'd called round. I think she appreciated it. I hope she did.
Yes. Have they set a date for the funeral?
No, not yet. Probably in a week or two's time. And up in Prudder, of course. I'm sure I'll be able to get a lift with somebody. Oh, it's too far to get back in a day. It'll have to be an overnight trip.
Well, until I know exactly when...
Oh, don't you worry, Elizabeth. If you can't make it, I can always go on your behalf.
Thanks. I was very fond of Heather, but with work so busy at the moment.
Yes, of course. But I'll definitely have to be there.
Yeah. I'm sure Ruth will appreciate it.
I think she's going to need all the support we can give her.
Perhaps it's a bit soon to talk about this, but well, it does rather change things, doesn't it?
Oh.
Hello? Elizabeth? Ah, good. Who is it coming through?
Hello, Linda.
Ah, Jill too. Hello.
Hello.
So, what can I do?
Would you mind if I sat down? I just had a rather upsetting experience.
Oh dear.
So, what?
No, I'd rather not talk about it. And there's something far more important we need to discuss. All the different things you can do with tofu. It's really quite surprising.
I knew it was too good to last.
What?
We've had a glorious week and a half with proper food every night, and now we're back to carrots and couscous.
Oh, darling, come on. It is her birthday. Here, why don't you try some of this?
What is it? There's no label on the
Oh,
bottle.
it's elderflower cordial. Carol gave it to me. She made it herself.
Carol?
Mm-hmm. It's quite delicious.
But is it safe to drink?
Why on earth not?
Well, these sinister rumours flying around.
I don't know what to do.
Oh, come on, half the village thinks she's a white witch.
It's just some silly gossip, I expect.
And you've always had a thing about her ever since she came back. Go on, admit it.
Well, it was just idle curiosity, and it was before I'd had a chance to get to know her again.
So what's changed so suddenly?
Well, I have had the chance to have a proper talk about old times and to fill in some of the gaps. I can see I'd got her all wrong.
Oh.
There's nothing the least sinister about Carol. In fact, I have a great deal of respect for her.
Respect?
Yes. She's just a brave, good-hearted woman who's doing her best in what is sometimes a very sad and difficult world. In fact, I wonder if I'd share her compassion and her strength of will.
Hello? Oh, it's me, I'm back.
Oh, Kate! Oh,
imagine a Christmas in Ambridge without our Christmas show? Well, it's almost unthinkable. But as things stand, we just don't have a venue.
But aren't they going to restore the village hall?
Yes, and that's wonderful, of course. But it'll never be ready for Christmas. Besides, where would we rehearse in the meantime?
I can see your point, Linda.
I rack my brains. I've lain awake half the night thinking about it. And there's just nowhere we can use in the entire village. So, that's why I've come to you, Elizabeth.
You want to have the Christmas show here at Lowlands?
Yes, it would be the obvious venue. The perfect setting, these wonderful facilities. And your summer opera was such a success.
Outside?
Oh, no, not in the middle of winter. It would have to be inside the house.
Yes.
But then space is one thing you're not short of.
Yes, I see. But the thing is, Linda, the run-up to Christmas is a very full time for us. We'll have lots of bookings, and then there'll be Deck the Hall.
Oh, we wouldn't take over the whole house. All we need is one room, the ballroom, for instance.
Well, I'd like to be able to help you out, but...
Think about it. It needn't be all one way. There could be something in it for you as well.
How?
Well, from a PR point of view, the whole village would be eternally grateful to you, and I know how important reputation is to a local business like yours. Surely someone in your position can never have too many friends among the community.
Well, I can't make any promises, of course.
But you will give it some thought.
Yes.
Good.
And I'll have a look at our schedule, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Shall I open this bottle now?
Oh, or shall we wait for your Auntie Lillian?
Yeah, there's no big rush, is there, Dad?
Oh, all right. No, you're the birthday girl.
Dad, please. It's just a number on the calendar. It's no big deal.
Yes, it is. And it's been so long since you've been here for your actual birthday.
Mom, please, leave it.
All right, darling.
Can we just talk about something else? You've still not heard all the great ideas I've researched for my business.
Yes, you tell us about that.
It'll be fascinating to hear.
Oh, well, it's all been so amazing. I've had such a cool time and met some really inspirational people. I just can't wait to get started. So I'm planning to get my first yurts up and running by the autumn.
Really?
Isn't it autumn already?
I mean, at first they'll be for the treatments and workshops, but just until the barn conversion is done. And then I'll be able to start my residential retreats after Christmas, starting with a New Year detox break.
Oh, that sounds timely.
Do you think there'll be a demand?
Dad, why else do you think I've spent the last 10 days doing all this in-depth market research?
Tell me.
In fact, you should sign up yourself after all that vintage wood you'll have put away.
Detox, I prefer to be slowly poisoned.
Right. And the detox is just the beginning. There's so much more I want to... Oh, right. Okay.
Kate?
Sorry, I'll have to dash off.
Why? Where are you going?
That was Jake. We're going to hang out in town with him and some of the guys.
What about your birthday supper?
I told you I don't want anything special.
But it's already in the oven.
Okay, so keep it warm for me, will you? I'll be back later. Oh, and I'll tell you more about my plans. Bye.
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 It's her birthday.
She's trying very hard to forget. I wonder if it's become rather a sensitive subject.
I don't see why.
38? She can't pretend she's in her mid-30s anymore.
Brian?
Oh, Elizabeth, that's wonderful news. Thank you so much.
I'm glad we can help.
Oh, yes, you've saved our Christmas show. Everyone's going to be so grateful and excited.
Okay, well, we must meet up again soon and talk through the details.
Yes, we must.
I really have to go now.
Oh, all right. Goodbye, and thank you again.
Bye. Oh, what have I let myself in for?
Have you said yes to Linda?
I hope it's not going to be a huge mistake.
Well, I don't see why. And it'll be nice for me to have some old friends around the place.
Yes. Mum, we need to have a talk.
Yes?
Well, first of all, your birthday on Saturday. We may need to rethink our party plans.
Oh, well.
But more importantly, you know how lovely it is for us to have you here. And you're welcome to stay for as long as you want, of course.
Thank you, darling.
I do know that.
But if at some point, if you feel you wanted to move back to Brookfield, well, I would understand.
Thank you, love. That's very sweet of you to say.
I mean, we'd be very sad to lose you, of course, and there really is no big hurry, is there?
You're right. I shouldn't make any decisions until things settle down a bit.
Okay.
And as for now, with Ruth so upset by it all, I think the less time I spend at Brookfield, the better.
BBC Radio 4, now time for Front Row with Samira Ahmed.
Hello, tonight has this year's Turner Prize regained its power to shock the new director of the National Gallery on what he learned running the Prado through Spain's toughest post-crash austerity years, how Roald Dahl inspired Patrick DeWitt's new Gothic novel, and why does The Crucible, Arthur Miller's play about the Salem witch trials, still chill us today?
The play resonates very, very powerfully today. During rehearsals, actually, we kept a little log of witch hunts which seemed to be coming up in the news.
More from Bristol Old Vics director Tom Morris later. Works by the shortlisted artists for the Turner Prize went on show in Glasgow today. The prize awarded to an artist under 50 for the best exhibition of the past year used to excite national controversy in the days when Damien Hirst's Shark and Tracy Emin's Tent were on the list. Previous winners have included Gilbert and George and the future Oscar-winning film director Steve McQueen. Now that conceptual and video art are old hat, does the prize suggest the judges are at the cutting edge of contemporary art anymore? Shortlisted are video artist Bonnie Camplin, German-born Nicole Vermes, Assemble, The Collective, and Janice Kerbel. Moira Jeffrey is art critic with the Scotsman newspaper. She's been to Tramway to view the works and joins me on the line from Glasgow. Moira, is there an overriding theme you can detect?
The Turner Prize this year isn't thematic. I mean, it's never really thematic, but I think what I would say is that this is art that has kind of come off the wall, got off the floor. It's art that expects to do something out in the real world, and it also expects you to do something while you visit. Of the four pieces, one of them is a musical suite written for vocalists. That's Janice Kerbel's work. Bonnie Camplin has created a reading room exploring the world of conspiracy theorists on the internet.
This is the military-industrial complex.
That's right. It's a new version of this work called Patterns. And Assemble, the art and design collective, have actually produced a workshop come showroom where you can look at materials and actually buy things.
And Nicole Vermeer's piece is a what?
Nicole Vermeer, I suppose, is a more conventional sculptor. She's produced a series of works that relate to the history of classic modernism, a suite of very beautiful modern chairs that she has used her sculptural skills to adjust.
They've got old fur coats draped over them.
They are. They're rather lovely and rather glamorous. But what interests me about this show is actually they're the closest to conventional sculpture you're going to get. All of the other works, I think, move beyond the kind of the confines of the gallery space and conventional ideas about what an artwork might be.
It's a long time since we've expected kind of conventional paintings and sculpture at the Turner Prize, and there has been talk, you'll know, over the last year in particular, of the prize having lost its fizz and its relevance, even being upstaged. What sense do you get of how far it's able to reclaim that kind of buzz it used to have?
Well, I don't know. I've been covering the prize since the late 90s. I've never subscribed to the kind of apocalyptic school of Turner criticism. Some years I like it, some years I don't, but I never think we've reached the end of art or the end of the prize. What interests me about this show is that, for example, in the work of Assemble, a collective of 18 young people who work in art and architecture and design, they've just moved beyond the confines of the gallery space altogether. They've been nominated for a project working in collaboration with the residents of Toxteth, who are actively trying to change their own lives by converting derelict property, by setting up a social enterprise to create objects for the home, which is just, I think, a real example of the way that people the needs that they have in the world, but the way that artists work.
Is there significance in the show being in Glasgow? It's got quite a big history of Turner nominations, hasn't it?
Yes, the Scottish artist Douglas Gordon, who trained at Glasgow School of Art, won the prize way back in 1996, almost 2 decades ago. But in that period, 6 prize winners and 12 nominees have had a really strong connection with the city. They've either studied here, worked here, or grown up here.
And Maura, if I can briefly get you to pick me your idea of who might win and why.
I think with the prize, often you can't predict the way that juries are going to behave. I think within the art world, Janice Kerbel has an incredibly kind of strong history and a strong track record and has presented a very strong piece of work. However, it's clear, even from one day in the space, that the popular choice is this lovely workshop by Assemble. I think mainly because of the idea that it's about community empowerment and about things that we can all understand and needs that we all have.
Can you almost briefly describe how it works?
Yes, as a result of being nominated for the prize, Assemble decided that they would actively use the opportunity to do something. They set up a brand new social enterprise with their collaborators in Toxteth. You can go in, you have a look at what they produce. They produce wonderful household items, for example, little doorknobs. There is beautiful block printed textiles, there's furniture. These are made by local people and will feed back into the community. You can look at these, you can handle the items, you can find out how they're made, but above all, you can touch an iPad and you can order some of these objects online. So Assemble have actually changed the terms of the game. It's not an exhibition, it's not talking about the world, it's actually doing something in the world.
Interesting. Maura Jeffrey, thank you so much for talking us through the nominations of the Turner Prize. The winner will be announced on the 7th of December, and the exhibition is open to the public. You can go and see it until January at Tramway in Glasgow. Now, The Crucible, Arthur Miller's play inspired by the real Salem witch trials of 1692, endures as his most accessible and popular play, often staged in schools. Written in 1953, it's widely seen as a parable about the McCarthy anti-communist witch hunt which destroyed the careers of many of Miller's contemporaries in Hollywood. In the centenary year of Miller's birth, there are 2 productions running, one in Manchester and one about to open in Bristol. The story focuses on an accusation of witchcraft made by one girl, Abigail, to cover her affair with farmer John Proctor, which soon sees other children and young servants such as Mary Warren join in the collective hysteria to denounce dozens of adults before the male judges.
When she come into the court, I say to myself, I must not accuse this woman, for she sleep in ditches and so very old and poor. But then she sit there denying, and I feel a misty coldness climbing up my back, and the skin on my skull begin to creep, and I feel a clamp around my neck, and I cannot breathe air. And then I hear a voice, a screaming voice, and it were my voice. And all at once I remembered everything she'd done to me.
Ria Zimitrovitz as Mary Warren in the Manchester Royal Exchange production of The Crucible. It's directed by Caroline Steinbeiss. I asked her and Tom Morris, whose version opens at the Bristol Old Vic next week, how far they'd sought to update the play and its setting.
Even though Arthur Miller clearly wrote it to refer to events that were happening in America in the 1950s, the play resonates very, very powerfully today. During rehearsals, actually, we kept a little log of witch hunts which seemed to be coming up in the news while we were rehearsing. And in some cases, very disturbing resonances came up. For example, Paul Gambaccini, you may remember, recently published his book. And he said that when he was talking to the police about what evidence they had, he said the police had said, well, we're not looking for evidence, we're just looking for the stories to agree. And in the middle of Act 3 of The Crucible, Deputy Governor Danforth, talking to the Reverend Hale, basically says, witchcraft is a crime which is only witnessed by the witch and the victim. And the witches aren't going to confess, they're not going to come to us with the story, so all we can do is listen to the stories of the victims. And you have a chilling contemporary resonance from that, but I'm sure, Caroline, you found completely different ones.
Caroline?
Really the main point of interest for me was how it really is a perfect piece of theatre, because the play deals entirely with the notion of belief and make-believe, and of course that's what theatre is too.
There's something very specific about the world of the Crucible. It is set at a time and a place, and it's a very religious world. Often costumes have that Puritan look of the women. How have you decided to address that?
Well, our costume is the closest that you could call to modern dress, I suppose. The men have jeans and suits and jackets and hats that resemble what people wear on the streets now, and it's really the women that bring the religious look to the production. But a lot of our research looked at religious communities in America, and particularly one group called Christians of the Latter-day Saints. And the women in that community have very colourful, actually, dresses, but block colour dresses. So you have yellows and pinks and purples, lavenders, light blues, and very intricate hairdos. And we basically took that look and adapted it to our production. So it's the women that root us through history, and it's the men that bring us into the now.
What about you, Tom? Because the role of women is essential. I know Yale Farber's Old Vic production last year, they wore quite elaborate head dressing, so though they weren't Islamic, it conveyed this idea of women's sexuality is the key to this play.
The plot wouldn't work unless there was a disenfranchised minority within the world of Salem who've got nowhere to go, who've got no sort of status in the world that's depicted. And there are three groups, slaves, women and children, who are incredibly disempowered. And part of what the story that Miller's telling is how the opportunity to seize the centre stage, if you like, gives a very, very rare opportunity to be listened to these different groups. So gender politics is very, very much part of the story. It's partly a story about what a repressed group might do or what might happen if you don't attend to those voices.
What about the failing marriage of John and Elizabeth Proctor? Because it seems to me that's the heart of the play, and you did feel there was something very personal to Arthur Miller in your research for this.
Absolutely. I think the opening of the second act is pretty much verbatim a conversation between Arthur Miller and his first wife Mary. I'm sure it is. I mean, the gulf between the two of them and this huge distance that they have.
What about for you, Tom? What do you make of that personal family relationship at the heart of the play?
Well, it's clear that for the key for the play for Arthur Miller is this love triangle in a way. The fact that John Proctor has slept with Abigail when she was working in the household, and that his marriage is therefore broken and fractured with Elizabeth. And what I'm finding working on it now is that the writing is incredibly powerful in all of those relationships. It's very, very fully written. There's something very, very playable in what Abigail says to John Proctor about the value of their relationship, which is an adultery.
I love the John Proctor that took me from my sleep and put knowledge in my heart. I never knew what pretend Salem was. I never knew the lying lessons I was taught by all these Christian women and their covenanted men. And now you bid me tear the light out of my eyes? I will not. I cannot. You love me, John Proctor, and whatever sin it is, you love me yet.
The danger there slightly is that actually in bringing the angle so closely onto the female perspective actually excludes how the men act in this play as well, and fear overrides this entire society. Everybody in this play experiences it and acts upon it to their own gain. So really, it's bigger than that. I
don't think it's a misogynistic play, but it does dramatise misogyny. There's no question about that. The trial scene in Act 3, all of the people making decisions and making arguments are men, and the only other people in the room are female children who are there as witnesses, who are being kind of burnt into by these questions and manipulated by the questioners, and it's very clearly a failing male power base which commits the atrocities of the play.
Did you sense that really with Mary Warren, who's under pressure to tell the truth this time, but has the ranks of all those other girls lined up against her and is threatened with hell if she lies?
I mean, interestingly, in our production, when I look at it now, and I look at these girls sitting in that courtroom, and I see a group of intelligent and independently thinking people, and I see the same in Abigail, and I see the same in Mary Warren, and of course they are reacting to the immense pressure that they're in. But I think at least what I can see on the faces of the actresses that we're working with, is that there is a sense of shared responsibility in what they are in the room for.
Joint enterprise.
Yeah.
Caroline Steinbeiss and Tom Morris. And we heard Dean Lennox Kelly and Rona Morrison as John Proctor and Abigail in the Bristol Old Vic production, which opens on October the 8th till November the 7th, and the Crucible at the Manchester Royal Exchange is on now and runs till October the 24th. Now, it's one of the most prestigious jobs in the art business, the director of the National Gallery in London. But with warnings of more tough budget cuts ahead from the Chancellor and a long-term strike by gallery staff about bringing in private contractors to man exhibitions, Gabriele Finaldi has plenty of challenges ahead. It's a return home, though, for the former curator, who's spent the past decade at the Prado in Madrid. Already, the gallery has announced landmark new shows on Caravaggio and the French painter Delacroix, whose images of revolution might seem particularly pertinent in the current turmoil about EU membership and national politics. I went to meet Gabriele Finaldi at his office overlooking Trafalgar Square to ask whether the National Gallery should be taking on such difficult issues and attempting to challenge the public.
Painting has always had this tremendous ability to engage with contemporary society, and not only contemporary artists, I think even the art of the past has a way to make us think about what kind of society we want to be. And I think it's a challenge for the National Gallery to find ways in which the art of the past can speak to us in a particular set of circumstances in which we find ourselves today. The Seeing Salvation exhibition back in 2000, that's an exhibition that I was closely involved with, and it was fascinating to see how pictures, works of art, sculptures and so on, often dating from 500-600 years ago, really did have the ability to make us think about what is the role of faith in society today, what kind of society is growing up around us. The gallery is kind of replenishing people's experience as they come to visit frequently, and that's what we love. We love people to come often to the gallery. We want people to take possession of the National Gallery, to feel it as theirs.
You were at the Prado dealing with the depths of austerity budgets in Spain. What have you learned from that experience, and how far can you apply it to the National Gallery?
Yes, I was at the Prado in the early 2000s when things were going extremely well for the Spanish economy. And then, of course, in 2008, the crisis hit Spain very, very hard. So there was actually sort of complete rethink of how the gallery dealt with its finances, what the relationship between the museum and the government was going to be, and a much greater involvement of what in Spain is called civil society in the functioning of the museum. To an extent, that model was already in existence here. So for us, as we confront new challenges of reductions in public funding, we'll have to find ways of being more imaginative in the way we partner with civil society, about how we engage the sort of commercial sector in partnering with us, how we make the gallery grow in straitened circumstances. I was recently in Berlin, and it's very interesting to observe how here we're entering a time of austerity, which will affect all our public institutions and museums in particular. It's very notable to see how in Germany the state is investing massive amounts of money in its cultural institutions. Now, it's not a question just about money, it's also a question of how important, how high up in the priority of the state these institutions are. It's a very, very striking contrast, I think.
How are you planning to deal with the cuts? Do you think charging for entry for non-UK residents could be an option? It's something many other countries do.
Well, my experience in Spain was that there was a time when the Prado charged foreigners, but not Spaniards. That was challenged in the courts, and eventually everyone ended up paying. So I think that's a very artificial and not an especially fruitful way of going forward. So maintaining free admission is very, very important for us.
The National Gallery's relationship with its staff is going through a difficult time. I had to walk past a picket line today of people who say that the new contracts being brought in, the new private company being brought in, is not fair. What is the latest on this? It's a situation you've inherited. Is it time to rethink this?
Well, I think times are changing for many museums and galleries.